Hello. So I'm just gonna jump right in doing my research for this assignment. And by the way, my content area is social studies. So in finding articles about assessment practices in social studies, I came across three very good articles, and they didn't necessarily give me any new information, but they reminded me and kind of reinforced the information that I learned over the course of the semester. So the first article is entitled Assessment Practices in Social Studies Classrooms, Results from a Longitudinal Study. And so the author of this article really encouraged performance-based assessments. They said that performance-based assessments were ideal for this content. And the reason for that is because the students are able to actually do something. And when they're able to do something, then they're involved. They're spending their time immersing themselves in the character or the part or whatever it is that they are responsible for producing. And then they are able to make meaningful connections to it, which then produces true learning. So performance-based assessments should be used in social studies, and it not only does those things, but it also engages the students and it encourages them. It encourages them to do their very best in the classroom. Next was authentic assessments. The authors talked about authentic assessments and that it develops and assesses a true understanding of knowledge and the skills learned. So with authentic assessments, these should be reliable assessments. These should be realistic assessments. And it should be real world things that they can kind of simulate in the classroom, but still being able to produce or show their understanding of the content or the concepts that you were trying to teach. And so it's very important to do authentic assessments in social studies, as well as performance-based assessments. The results of this study was very surprising. Many teachers were surveyed, and they were surveyed based on the assessment practices that they used inside of their classrooms. And so the top three results were selected response tests, whole group, question and answer, the recall type of discussion, and written classwork. Some other ones that was on the list were extended written response, small group or peer discussions, performance assessments, extensive research projects, authentic assessments, self-assessments, and portfolios. Surprisingly, the last few made the bottom of the list. They were at the bottom. And that should not be the case inside of the classroom. Those last few assessments, type of assessments, performance assessments, authentic assessments, self-assessment, portfolios, those things should be at the very top of the list. But sadly, portfolios come in at number 16, so they're at the very bottom. If teachers were to use these type of assessments, the performance assessment, authentic, portfolio, if they were to use these things more, then the student would grasp the information a little better. They would be more engaged, and there would be true learning in the classroom. Okay, so the next article is entitled Impact of Backward Assessment and Guided Reflection on Social Studies Education, a 4-step teaching model or teaching cycle. And so this focused on the backward design. And the backward design is something that we definitely learned in class or through the readings. And it made a lot of sense. This is where you plan your instruction, starting with thinking about your assessment or the goal that you ultimately want your students to achieve. And so the steps are as follows. Pre-instructional exploration. And in order to do pre-instructional exploration, you can identify the questions or the problems first. You can set significant and challenging learning goals and objectives, which of course has to be aligned with the standards. And then you're diagnosing any challenges or prior knowledge or student learning styles from the very beginning. So that's pre-instructional exploration. Assessment development, some ways that you can do or achieve assessment development when planning is developing multiple assessment modes, creating multiple assessments to meet the individual needs, because we know that in the classroom students have a variety of needs, and so it's very important to cater to those needs by identifying and then creating assessments to meet those needs. Self-evaluation, so being reflective, using objective tests, rubrics, and rubrics for writing and projects, so that students can understand the criteria first before they get started with their work. Instructional development. So being able to create a learning environment that encourages social interaction and active engagement in learning and self-motivation. Being able to use a variety of instructional activities, assignments, and resources, and designing instructional activities aligned with specific learning goals, with the student needs and the learning context. Lastly is the reflective expansion. So with the reflective expansion, you are checking if the assessment tools are aligned with objectives. The assessment has to be aligned with the standards. They have to be meaningful. Interpreting the assessment results accurately. So, and being able to use the data for student learning in the classroom. So the reflective expansion is a very, very important part. Not that the others aren't, but very important, because this is where you're actually using the data, moving forward to help the students and to cater to their needs. To also see if you need to reteach, or if you need to do small group or have a one-on-one tutoring session. These things happen at that last stage, which is reflective. So you're first thinking about the needs of the students, the challenges that you may encounter. Then you're creating the assessment with those things in mind, and then you're creating your instructional instruction by using a variety of methods, and then you're reflecting on not only just the assessment, but your instructional development as well. The results of this was that teachers were able to stay focused on the desired goal. So they were able to weed out anything that was really unimportant and just really stay on task and stay focused on what they wanted or what they needed the students to learn. There was a heavy focus on essential concepts. So just being able to focus more again on those specific concepts that the students need to learn, not getting off track or going into other things. And then students listened and participated more, and their overall motivation increased. So because teachers were able to weed out anything that was unimportant, and because they were able to focus on a specific thing, the students were more engaged, they participated more, and their motivation increased because they knew what to expect. And overall, they were able to make connections with everything because of the instruction that the teacher planned initially. Okay, so last but not least, we have drama and authentic assessment in a social studies classroom. So authentic assessment. You first need to make sure that the evaluation is realistic, that is relevant, and that is reliable. Authentic assessments really assess true understanding, and students are able to really think about what they're doing. This helps with critical thinking when you are able to give an authentic assessment. Collaboration, when you're giving an authentic assessment, it encourages students to work together instead of it being an individual task. And students are able to lean on each other, and they're able to create a sense of community with each other while doing this authentic assessment. Using drama as an assessment. So students explore their characters, which leads to greater understanding of the content. So when you're doing or assigning a drama activity for an assessment, students are assigned a character, and this causes them to research and to critically think about the character that they're exploring, and they're able, again, to make meaningful connections. They're engaged, and that's where they really learn. They're researching, they're discussing, and then they're performing. And this is something that will help the students to not just memorize the content, but again, to actually learn the content. So that's why it's important to use authentic assessments and drama as an assessment, because that is where true learning is. That is where the true learning is. All right, so here are my references. And I hope that this was informative, and I hope that you all have learned something and will take this with you as you move forward. And thank you.